Holidays, everyone. Another
Yay.
amazing day of 12 Days of Giving. Today we have the best person, one of the best people I know, and that's Jodi
Oh my,
Peterman with EED. And we're going to be talking about why she changed her process in her business, what that outcome looks like for you as the client or the prospective client looking at doing anything, updating your home or building a new home. So I'm going to shut up and let Jodi take the floor. But without further ado, Jodi, why don't you tell us kind of why you changed into this concierge type service?
oh my gosh. I will try and condense it down. It's kind of a long story. I started out with a client in Florida when I first moved here, my first client. And it was 2 years ago. A contractor I had met had wanted me to get started with them because they were moving down, starting their business in Florida. They're like, you get it designing for me. And then when you're ready, bring me in. And I said, perfect. So we started along that process, but um, life happens and things go awry. And I don't think people understand the strain of going through a remodel or new construction while dealing with life. Like life is hard enough to deal with, but then try adding on a remodel and things that go wrong with that and just things that come up or decision fatigue because there's so many decisions that need to be made. And so that's kind of why we came up with this whole concierge program. So that's the synopsis behind it. So anyways, I started with this client a couple years ago and me just moving down as well. They wanted to take down some walls and they wanted to know the cost of taking down the walls to see whether or not it was even a viable option to do it or whether they should just, do things as they do it, just leave it as it is and just redo it as the walls are up. So trying to get that down here in Florida, like, we work all over the nation and Iowa's special and da da da. Florida is super special. Florida feels like during certain times of the year, everybody's on like permanent vacation and everything takes like, oh my gosh, 9 times longer than it probably should. Like I lived in New York City and in Iowa, I'm just go, 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 get it done. So anyways, I finally found we were in a situation where an engineer was coming in, but it was going to be 3 or 4 weeks to get them in, and then another 3 or 4 weeks to decide what we could do. I ended up finding this other engineer. They came in and they're like, okay, it's going to be between 10 and 15,000. So that alone was stressful enough. And that was out of my scope of work when I bid the project because we do the designing. Usually the contractor tells us, like what can happen and what, and has had that conversation with the client. So just learning experience. It was great. I was glad I was there for that. But that took a good chunk of time to get that decision made. So then we could go forward with making, all the floor plans. So we get going with that, making the floor plans, doing the designing, doing our normal stuff, going back and forth, making the edits. And then that's usually where we stop and we hand over the project to the contractor. And then they would just let us know here and there whether or not they had any questions. And that's how we had transformed probably since the past 3 or 4 years prior to that. That's how we operated. This client had a special attachment to me because I had been working with them for now almost a year and a half, about a year and a quarter. And they hadn't really even seen much of the contractor. Now we get the contractor involved. And now, they start questioning things and she's asking me certain things. And things that I was out of the loop on, like, is this normal? And I'm like, I don't know their process. Let me dive into it a little bit deeper. And then I just kept getting pulled in and pulled in and pulled in. And I remember sitting in my office and I got a call from her and she was just very distraught. And she was just like, I told you I needed help. Like, I don't do renovations every day. And like, I thought, this X, Y, and Z. And I'm like, I just took a deep breath and I was just like, okay, what can I do so that you feel supported during this process? How can I support you? Because now it's no longer of like, that wasn't in the scope of work. This isn't part of our deal. It became more of like a human connection and what was the right thing to do in business. So I got a handle on what she needed and where she felt she was lacking knowledge of, to bridge that gap between the communication of the contractor and her. And I just started to get involved in a loving way. Like I, talked to the contractor, and they were grateful too, because I said, look, she's got a connection to me. She's feeling like she doesn't have any support. You're telling her things and she's, not understanding fully and doesn't want to seem like, hey, I don't know what's going on. So we had that whole aspect going on. So once I got involved, things got a little bit better. I was able to, like I said, bridge that gap. But then, this might be an extreme story, but it is a story that I've told over and over. Different aspects of it happened to different people during new construction, during remodels, and things like that. This poor family had everything that and more that could go wrong with their project than any other project I've ever worked on. And I've been in business for almost, in a couple of weeks, it's going to be 22 years. It started out with their kitchen cabinets. This was in the summertime. So the kitchen cabinet company that the contractor used was based out of Kansas, and it got hit by a tornado right when all the cabinets were getting ready to be delivered. Their cabinets completely wiped out. Do you know what that does to a timeline? Because your kitchen cabinets are 8 to 10 weeks out. Okay. That is huge. She needed support during that time, a lot of it. They were in a rental unit down the street from where the construction was happening. And their rental unit, they found out, had like mold in it. And the landlord was trying to remediate it in a not so good way and keep it under wraps, and showing people the house because they were going to be out of it soon to get it rented again. And the mental stress on her to have to like not say anything to these people coming through with kids. So finally she's just like saying stuff. So they got kicked out of their house because she's like, I can't sit here and let people bring little kids through and know like there's mold and they're not remediating it properly. So they ended up going to a hotel room with their little dog, who's like, the cutest in the entire world. Going to a hotel and staying, but now they're living out of a hotel, a 1-room hotel room with a dog. And her husband was going to work every day, but she was staying trying to help manage this project. So that adds a lot of stress. Like I could keep going. The guy who's doing the tile work in their master shower was the owner of the company, and it was a tile from Italy. So it was very particular tile that the contractor only wanted him to touch. His wife ended up getting cancer, so he had to leave and deal with obviously his family situation, and nobody could touch the shower for a long time, which then delayed things further. And then they found out they were short some tiles after the fact when he could come back. So then they needed to order more tile from Italy. The contractor doing the closets ended up hiring a new office manager, and she ordered sage green cabinets for the closet that was supposed to be white for my client, and ordered white cabinets for the person who was supposed to get sage green. Then in the middle of that, he ended up having a heart attack, and they weren't able to even get it installed after we got it all straightened out. I could go on and on and on. When we did get the kitchen cabinets, the guy who was installing it absconded with all of the door fronts and was never to be heard of again. Nobody knows where he is. Nobody knows anything about him. He has nothing, gone off the face of the earth. So we had to get another company in to do that. Like, I'm just saying, like, this is an extreme account. I have never seen this in 24 years, but anything that could go wrong, even the contractor, the project manager on it, ended up having LASIK surgery. And he was like, had so much pain behind his eye. He was pushing on it, kind of gross, trigger warning, disclaimer. He pushed on it and not so nice stuff came out of his eye. He almost lost his eye. Not funny, but he had to go get that taken care of. Like, we're talking like if she was going through something, she was really going through it. She was getting hit and hammered hard. There were times where I'm just like, do you want to just get out? Let's just get out and go look at stuff. So we would go look, at furniture. We would go like, do you need a spa day? Do you need like, I was joking with her one point. I said, I think I need to come sage your house. And she's like, no, how fast can you get here? Let's move it. Like, let's go. I need you. I literally went and saged her house, her dog, her rental unit. We saged everything. So just really that whole experience was just hammering to me how much people just really need that extra support all the way through. And then now I have a not so extreme um, uh, example too. I had a client who they're busy and they travel, and they didn't want to be involved in the renovation. They wanted to trust whoever they put in charge, and they run a Fortune 500 company. They wanted to just, we want to run our company. We don't want to do this. Yes, we'll have weekly meetings and make decisions where we need to, but all the day to day things that happen, we don't need to know about all that stuff. So we went there, and when I was looking at everything in the design, I was like, I think that this little aspect of the kitchen is going to be off. So we ended up ordering extra cabinets to stack on top, because it was just going to throw off the design. And I know that they weren't going to be happy with it, the way the hood was placed and how it was going to be mounted. From, it was a condo building, so how everything was coming into it, just the placement of and the size of the hood, we needed to stack the thing. So anyways, the contractor worked and got a great deal on those cabinets, so it didn't end up costing them a lot. And they had in the budget to work with it, since we had everything selected up beforehand, which was great. I also caught that through something else into a tailspin, where I was like, okay, we're doing that with the cabinets. Now we were going to do 2 large pendants. We're going to have to do 3 medium pendants, because 2 large ones are going to look off with the extra tall cabinets. So we needed more bulk over the island. So we were able to make those decisions quickly, that maybe the contractor just would have went off the plans and not noticed. But having us there the entire time, to be that bridge that gap, was just amazing. We also caught that. Okay, another thing is, the painters in Florida, like, they don't always, understand the communication. And not just painters, it's everybody. I'm picking on this poor little painter, but I had put in the paint chart that the doors should be painted this beautiful little sand color, and then the walls were going to be, a warm white, and the trim was going to be like a brighter white. And so when I had this really funny feeling, so I went back to the apartment, or the house, the townhome, the next day, and he had been painting the trim and the door jamb the sand color, but the trim on the floor was being painted white. So it was like very odd. And he's like, this doesn't look right. I'm like, yeah, that's because it's not right. Like, the paint chart's very literal. So we went over it again, and I was able to stop him right before he painted like all of them. He got 1 door done that way. So had he done them all, it would have been extra money for him, and it would have been extra money for time for the clients to have to wait for all
And
of that.
I think that's the big
So
part of it, is the concierge side is a win-win really across the board, right? Everything
yes,
that you just said in those stories would be very overwhelming if you were doing it yourself and trying to work with a contractor.
I
You
can't
don't speak their
imagine just,
language, you don't see
yeah,
what they say. In order, and then having someone come in is vitally important. Go ahead.
no, yeah, I'm sorry. Just the just being able to be there and catch those things was so amazing. And you're trying to do life. Like, people don't understand, like, you're going to get bombarded with a million questions on, how that comes up, and they don't really, a lot of people give the problems without giving the solutions. And that has been since day one in my company. One thing I have done right. There's lots of things I've done wrong and had to correct, but this one thing I've done right, and I've talked to my employees about it. And we don't go to problems, we don't go to clients with problems. We go to clients with the issue and solutions and our professional recommendation. Like, that's what you do. Like, a lot of times I'll hear contractors X, Y, and Z, and the client's like, what do I do? What do you think? What would you do if it was your home? Like, so just having that ability and that person to bounce ideas off of, and just kind of just be that bridge. I can't think of a better word than other than bridge. We're the bridge.
What can someone do? Maybe they're in the process right now, right? And they don't have their interior designer doesn't do the concierge, or they don't have one, and they're dealing with contractors. Aside from calling you in
Yep.
emergency and saying, "Jodi, help me," which they should do, what would be a next step for them in order to try to get control of the situation? Because they're spinning. What could they do by themselves to help?
Yeah, I think that well, when you're in the middle of it, it's tough. You have to step back and you're going to get pushback from the contractor saying, it's money, we got to go, we got to go, we got to go because the contractor has to go. You don't have to. The contractor, sorry contractors, but you work for the clients. So if they need a moment, they need a hot second to get it figured out and get under control, you need to bring everybody in and have a group meeting and sort out and have those communications, out of love. You just say, like, this is what I'm feeling, this is what's not what I'm seeing, this is how it's not making sense to me, how do we get this, you know under control and wrapped up. Like, these are the issues that are going on. If it's lack of communication, how can we get on better communication? Do you need weekly meetings? Do you need them on site? Who needs to be present? I would ask for an agenda ahead of time so everybody knows before the meeting what it's going to be about, so you're not just wasting time missing items that need to be gone over. A lot of people contact me and they've gone through remodels and new construction before, and they're like, I hate the last minute, like, I'm in the middle of work typing up, I have all these pressures of things and the kids need stuff and then the contractor needs X, Y, and Z now. Like, it's so frustrating. So if you're doing it yourself and you're not hiring a designer, the more organized the better, the more documentation the better, the more you can even just make an Excel spreadsheet and put images and put like links to things and where you want it to go. Like, get your thoughts organized, so that you can have clear communication. I mean, anytime one of our clients makes a change, the document gets updated and dated and it gets sent out to everybody so everybody knows there's been a change to the document. It's just, communication is key. And if you don't have it with your contractor, you need to get it. You need to rein that in and get it. And it's a come to Jesus meeting, the staff meeting, whatever you want to call it, to get everybody on board and set expectations.
So what about those that are going and thinking about starting this process, right? Because it's the end of the year. No one's going to start it in the middle of winter, at least majority of the United States. What about us going into the spring going, okay, hey, this is what we want to get done? How should they interview other designers? What should they go through from their process when picking the right one for?
Yeah. So you need, if you're going to be working with a designer to help you, I would ask, go over how they operate, what their process is. It needs to be very streamlined, and talk about, if they're not asking you what your project scope is, they need to understand that in order to bid it out properly. Some designers just work by the hour, and that's fine. Some people like me, I hate working by the hour. So I like working by the project. So you need to understand that project scope so that you understand what you're going to be getting for the fee that you're investing in the designer.
That simple, right?
It's that simple. Yeah. And it's not all about the design, because if you're following a designer, you can follow a designer because you like the design, but any good designer should be able to take the aesthetics of the exterior of the home, the features on the inside, and play it up to what your wants and wishes are. And you also want to ask, like, how they interact. Is it a group, or are they just on their own in their own little world working with you? If it was me, I would want somebody in a group effort. That's why in the concierge program, we work with the contractor. We get the engineer involved right away if there's walls coming down, because we don't want to be designing something that a client's going to fall in love with and then they can't have it because it's going to be $40,000 to put a beam in. That doesn't make any sense. So just getting on that same path. And then the aesthetics is great, but like I said, any designer should be able to do any good design and make it wonderful, livable luxury experience.
And
It is all about the experience, right? Like, you want that when you go on a travel journey. You want to know what the experience is going to be. You plan that out. So this is no different. You're planning this out and want to make sure that you're bringing the right people along. Your right
I want
tour
to add,
guide.
yeah, and I'll add two things to it. One, make sure there's a vibe check. Like you can relate to them, you have fun with them. They're part of your, I guess, friend group, family, right? That's who by the way, any expert professional you hire, you should have that with. You should have
Yes.
that closeness because it will balance some of the issues. There are some tough conversations we all have to have with our clients, but if you get along and you're on that more emotional relationship level, those conversations are easier and we all know we can go forward in the outcome, as opposed to if you don't really like them or there's something weird tension, you're just going to probably forget them, not admit things or something like that. And the
Yeah.
other thing is, and I know you'll attest to this, and you work with obviously with me and our team, but you need to have lending or your budget or financials in order to with the whole project, right? You should have that on the
Absolutely.
front side, and your team of financial professionals should be in touch with the entire team as we go, so that way we can make adjustments to whatever happens as well.
Exactly. And I have a story for that too. So I had a client call me about a year ago, and they have stairs in the middle of their home that they wanted moved, and then they wanted to move the kitchen and wanted to do an addition and all X, Y, and Z, and their budget was 250. And I said, I am so sorry that I have to be the one that bursts a bubble, but moving the stairs in the kitchen will get that done, but you won't be able to put cabinets in. Like, that's not a big enough budget for what you want to do. It's just, people have HGTV syndrome where they see everything's getting donated to HGTV for free, or they're having, people that they're not paying very much money do the work or whatever it is. And the numbers they're giving are not realistic. So and then a year later, I was really surprised. They called me back and like, okay, we got financing together and we're good. Cause I recommended that they contact you because you have to have your budget in order, or at least have at least a good starting point. Now, where we're at now and where where we started and where they've ended up is almost even double that new budget, just because they want what they want, and they're figuring it out. But that's the really cool thing about our process, because we design everything up front. All the questions done up front. We're asking questions with the visuals. So that way our clients are like, okay, I see what I'm getting. I see what I'm spending my money on, because when we get to a certain point, we take those documents and we get contractors involved and say, bid this out the way the client wants it. Then the contractor bids it out, and then the contractor and our team has a meeting and say, okay, if this is over budget for them, where can we value engineer this for them? Can they wait on this? Can they not do this? Can we switch that product out? Did I pick a tile that was crazy expensive? Those type of things, like where's the bigger ticket items coming in at? Then we all meet as a team. I force all my contractors to do this, to meet as a team with the client and say, okay, here's where the numbers came in for exactly what you want, but here's what you could do to save money. And then we already have the visuals to show them what it would look like. If we take out that tile wall and we just did an accent paint color, that's what it's going to look like, so they can make good educated decisions on what they want to spend their money on and what they don't. So when we say we help keep control over the budget, it's not like somebody tells me I have $100,000 and I want a 10-story building built for $100,000 and we can keep them in budget. That's obviously not realistic. What we do is we show the client what they want, and then we help them value engineer it. Yeah.
Absolutely. As we wrap this up, we always end the episode with the guest saying one item, one tip, one step, one whatever to help the listeners in their next step on their journey. So what is one thing you can give our listeners today that will help them take the next step in one, either getting design work or getting help if they're knee deep in the design work? What is that one tip or item?
I say patience and being realistic, because if you haven't gone through a remodel before, you can have the best team in the world. And I just yelled at my marketing and we're doing some rewording on stuff, and they keep putting on their stress free. And if I said, I see that word stress free anywhere in our marketing again, I'm going to scream. We cannot promise a stress free experience. We can promise a supported experience. We can promise that we're going to work together and we are going to come up with solutions and help make the best decision. But it's definitely, no matter who you hire, no matter if you have the best team, it's never stress-free unless you have an unlimited budget and don't care what you get at the end. Then they're just going to run amok and do what you want. So having patience and being realistic and communication, if you're frustrated, you have to rein your team in and say, I'm frustrated. Here's why. How can we make this a better experience for me? You have to advocate for yourself.
Amen to that.
If you don't have somebody with you.
And as always, we always end the episode with saying, hey, reach out to us. Share, like, comment, and DM us. It's not because of the algorithm. We don't care about that. Joni and I specifically care about helping you.
Mm-hmm.
So if you need to communicate, you have questions, immediate questions or whatever, reach out to us and our teams. We're here to support you as much as possible. And we just want to be able to talk. I think, and you know this too, and we all say this, is you only know so much until you ask. And communication is what leads you to ask. And we're here for you. So Jodi, thank you. Happy
Thank
holidays.
you.
Everyone go EED's website. We'll for sure have this everywhere as well. But everyone take care, have a happy holidays, and hopefully reach out to us and we can help you.
Thank you.
Was sponsored by Black Mammoth. Any awards, rankings, or recognition by unaffiliated third parties or publications are in no way indicative of the advisor's future performance or any individual client's investment success. No award, ranking, or recognition should be construed as a current or past endorsement of Black Mammoth. Information regarding specific awards, rankings, or recognitions is available on the Black Mammoth website, www.blackmammoth.com. All investment strategies have the potential for profit or loss. Investment strategies such as asset allocation, diversification, or rebalancing do not assure or guarantee better performance and cannot eliminate the risk of investment losses. There are no guarantees that a portfolio employing these or any other strategy will outperform a portfolio that does not engage in such strategies. This broadcast should not be construed by any client or prospective client as a solicitation to effect or attempt to effect transactions and securities, or the rendering of personalized investment advice due to various factors, including changing market conditions. The information discussed in this broadcast may no longer be reflective of current positions or recommendations. While information presented is believed to be factual and up to date, Black Mammoth do not guarantee its accuracy, and it should not be regarded as a complete analysis of the subjects discussed. The tax and estate planning information discussed is general in nature and is provided for informational purposes only and should not be construed as legal or tax advice. Listeners should consult an attorney or tax professional regarding their specific legal or tax situation. Past performance is not indicative of future results.